Everything else?
You are live.
Okay. Good morning, all. Welcome to the November 25th County Facilities Committee meeting. I'd like to open up the meeting this morning with the approval of minutes for the prior meeting. Supervisor Grassi, Supervisor Connor, for a second, thank you. We have privilege of the floor. Any public comment? Oh, wait, okay, let me back up there, sorry, can we vote on the motion? All in favor?
All right.
I would say disapproved, what do we normally say?
Opposed.
Approved or opposed, that's it, sorry. Anybody opposed? All right, so moved. Privilege of the floor, public comment. Okay, well, we'll hop right into our really big agenda today. We have discussion items. Unless I guess we do have a presentation this morning until we're ready. With that, should we just move on with discussion?
Go with the discussion items first, yeah.
Okay,
Discussion items, the work order request program is at 4,364 current work orders. And the fleet program is at 2,874 total and done,
2001.
874.
Wow, those are really good numbers, Scott. I really appreciate what you're doing over there. Those numbers seem to increase every month, so that's good.
Thank you. In regards to the Countryside Adult Home, update on that is the project is substantially complete. Minor contract work items left to be resolved in the coming weeks, and then it will be complete with punch list items. Then for the 2024 work, some of the items from the Countryside Adult Homes will be relocate the propane tank, form and pour new concrete pad for new placement, trench new supply lines and restore services. Facility generator, remove the existing, form and pour new concrete pad for new generator, trench new service connections and restore services. That'll be done by our DPW and on-call service providers. That's basically takes care of the Countryside Adult Home items.
I'll hit next on. I'm gonna jump to number 5 real quick. The Joseph Warren Museum.
Oh, excuse me, hang on a sec. Can we go back to the Countryside? Didn't mean to interrupt you there, but while we're on the Countryside, I talked to Amy yesterday. And I'm sorry I was able miss the walkthrough, but I will make it up there. If we can reach out, and just thank the contractors and and also yourselves. It really was a well-performed project with the amount of moving, and really I'd like to make it up there to thank the residents for being so adaptive to being hopped around and moved around. But it sounds like everything really moved well up there. There didn't seem to be any major glitches, any holdups. It went pretty smooth. So really kudos to you guys, and also if you can extend that out so far. It sounds like the punch list not really large. I mean, there's always little small things that there's always punch lists for projects that size, but just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll certainly add on to that, as I said, last committee meeting, and it's not just to this committee, but it's also to the full board. Anybody wants to have a tour of the work that was done up there, please. I mean, we can set up a day for everybody to go, or if you just want to come up, see me individually and run you over there, I certainly can do that, so you can see the work that took place.
Thank you. Okay, now we can hop on.
So I'm going to jump over the regional board real quick just to go to the Joseph Warren Museum. So currently our consultant Labella is finishing up all the final details of the plans to, I believe sometime in December, have it out to bid. So we will have bids in and know what the work will cost. Or the construction cost will be of the contract sometime probably in January. I don't know if John, you want to add anything regarding the tax or anything like that, but that's. I can.
Administrator.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so yesterday we talked about it at Octax. We pulled the request for money because we really don't, it goes around $600,000. But it'd be better to get a good idea of what it's actually going to cost. And then we put the request into the Octax committee to see how much they think they can fund. And we decide if we're gonna, if they're gonna fund it all, or if we're gonna have to fund some from the county. We'll have to bring that back to committee and discuss.
Thank you. Yes, I was there myself yesterday at the Octax, and when I was thinking, and I was listening to Supervisor Stroud last night in the town board meeting, very good meetings, and I was really shocked on your knowledge of subjects. That was you did a nice presentation, Supervisor. But I was thinking, this is really an important thing, and it's Supervisor Stroud said for a long time, Joseph Warren was a key factor in history. So what are we doing to make the grant for, because this isn't a museum, this is an educational thing. So, I mean, can we reach for grants, and are we on those to see if we can't get any to bring it in to help the costs, in between our tax and that, because this is, it's gonna be crunch time. I mean, we're talking January that, that it will go out and then it's gonna take another 2 months for bids to seem to come back in by time. And then by the time we get to the meet, it's over 3 months, and this is coming upon us pretty quick. Not that I'm trying to put pressure, but it's sometimes to me it gets very frustrating, but I understand. The process that we go, but is there any grants, Future Stroud or Thomas, do you or administrator?
Yeah, so the historical society has been looking at, they looked at grants, and they also were trying to raise money through donations, and what they found is there are no grants really available for this type of for museum construction. And maybe Kevin has more insight on that, but also donations are hard to come by for museum purposes right now too. The donations are going, particularly from a lot of the foundations, they're going to health and poverty and homelessness related things, mental health. It's hard to get donations for a museum. So getting additional funding beyond what we could do would be very difficult, if not impossible.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I happen, to look during the meeting, just Googling, grants, federal grants. So, maybe we're looking at it different as, not more of as museum, but maybe a educational, because of the history that Joseph Warren brings and bringing the name to our county. So,
I'll just add on to what John said. There is some grant funding out there, but grant funding, just as you said, deals with an educational component, not a museum component. They distinguish them as you're looking for that grant funding. Doesn't mean we can't try, but the chances are basically with the federal dollars with slim pickings for us to be able to do it.
well, we have a retired teacher of, I don't know, was it 50, 60 years there at Queensbury?
You were one of my students.
It was a long time. Educational and being able to, is there anything that we can do to help this museum look more educational?
Well, we did, like what others have said, did take a look at grants. There's a lot of money for museum programs. But this is a capital construction project. And setting up, I mean, once we get set up, we will be in a good position to get grant money for the various programs and educational activities going forward. But there's also a timetable. I mean, we would like to have our grand opening in 2025, which really isn't that far away. And, Joseph Warren died at the Battle of Bunker Hill, June 17th, 1775. So the 250th anniversary is coming up. And so there's a time factor too. With grants, you got to be very patient with them. And there's just not a lot of grants available for museum capital construction.
Well, thank you. I'm not looking to holding up anything waiting for a grant. What I'm hoping for is maybe we can apply for the grant, so if grant money does come in, we can apply it. I agree with you, with the Bunker Hill, and Joseph Warren. And I don't know if anybody, I've even stopped at the plaque in Fort Ann that's embedded into the granite rock there that, you know, I've driven past, 1,000 times, not need, and then finally seeing it. And of course, my wife's like, I need a picture of that. So I thought of you, John. I said, but, there's a lot of history in this area, but I'm not trying to hold up this project. And I'm a firm believer that this should move forward. I was just hoping maybe that we could, get it. And so if it's something we can work for into the future, that's great. But
We'll look into grant funding.
thank you. Thank you, Administrator. All right. Okay, next, Kevin.
So next thing we have on, and I guess we could quickly go through the referrals and pending items, because there's not a significant amount to those. The first one is design updates for the front entrance. I handed out the sheets last week that we got the final. The next step for us to do is kind of look at how we, as I said, those concept plans showed 4 distinct phases. We don't need to do it in those distinct phases around the county center. We can piecemeal them as we go around. For us, the first thing that we're going to look at or hit upon is the front entrance area, because that's still affiliated with the court. So that's going to be the first area that we kind of tackle. That may include the front entrance area, as well as I say, front entrance, the front entrance to the county center, the road, as well as the front entrance to out front here in what used to be the main doors to the county center. Beyond that, we will kind of have to determine over the future years what ones we're going to do and how we're going to budget for those moving forward. And John, I know that you guys had a meeting with Barbara Jodry the other day as far as the TAP awards and trying to make a connection from the county center to the Rush Pond Trail as well.
Yeah, we'll
So-
work on that too. Yeah,
Yep.
with you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
that's the first one. So we're gonna determine after the court project's completed. How much money we have left over, and then that'll be the first step of that, is to work on that plan. And I don't know. Do we want to keep this on as a referral? It's been on for quite some time to get us to this concept, but we're there now.
County owned.
Do you want to just remove it? And as we're doing the projects, we'll bring them back in.
What's the pleasure of the board?
That's the question.
Oh, the question is, do we want to keep on the concept drawing with the committee
Referral.
for the referral? I'm the referral for the design of the front. Do we want to keep on the referral? I mean, I don't want to put it on the, I don't mind putting it on the back burner, because really we have an idea is the front entrance is the main thing. That was the #1 priority. It's come in, it's been here for the years, goes with the courts, all right? I don't know about the road entrance, because that wasn't really part of the court project, was it?
It's not, that will not, the court money will not be used for that, but it's to an improvement that's been, and as Frank Thomas has alluded to many times, we've been talking about it for the last 20 years. So this is.
Well, yes, we should keep it on as a referral.
Keep it on referrals?
Okay.
The whole project, or just
Okay.
the entrances?
The whole thing for now.
The whole thing? Okay. That is the, do I have, I occur from the other committee members with Supervisor Thomas? Okay, we'll keep it on referral.
And just as an add-on to that is Janelle Jones got some money through public health, I think 100,000 a year or 110 a year for the next 5 years, or Janelle wants to, and that was part of the plans, put up some kind of a, no one called a lean, like a canopy to protect the nurses' vehicles, so that they don't have to go out snow-covered cars, not that we don't get them cleared for them, but that was part of this, and part of that may be looking at if we put solar panels on, charging stations there. So that was part of this concept plan as well. And right now, for this year and next year, she has 80,000, I believe, give or take, to go towards doing something out there. So maybe it's better that we just keep it on and we'll, as we said, start piecemealing it through the years of which ones we're going to do.
Now, this money that she is getting, and do we need a capital project account?
I eventually will set something up. I'm not setting something up right now.
All right, so as Supervisor Thomas and everybody concurred, we'll just keep it on there and we'll stay on top of it.
And the last one on there for referral pending items is the magnetometer at DMV, and we just lucky enough to have Terry here. I'm not sure if the undersheriff wants to talk about that at all. And not Terry, I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's where we're at, is that we do have it. It's ready to be kind of plugged in to go. It's just a matter of staff, I think.
It'll be a matter of staff. We'll take a look at staffing, once the new clerk and treasurer come in, once the new clerk comes in. We have 2 people at that position right now. Do we want to run a magnetometer? We really, it was kind of thrust upon the sheriff's office. We'll take a look. We'll have to run through some policies and who's going to run through the magnetometer and who is not going to run through the magnetometer. And we'll work on it that way. If we are going to man that magnetometer.
What do you mean run through it?
Who's going to go through that magnetometer? Is it going to be everybody that enters that DMV entrance? Or are we going to let employees go through there without the magnetometer, without running through the magnetometer? Are we going to?
What do we do across the street? Not to mean to interrupt you there, but across the parking lot, because I know when I show my tag, I'm able to go around. I don't think employees need to go through there, because if we can't trust our employees, we have some issues.
Well, we'll talk about that. We haven't sat down and chatted with anybody about how that's going to work.
Right.
But I have something in place on the other side of the parking lot that seems to work well, correct?
It does. It does.
So, my importance, my whole thing is that we really need to, we've waited so long for this, now we have it. And then we had the auditor come through. And that to me is a little scary. And I understand, this is today's society, but for me, before I read from our administrator, the kindness that we're supposed to use, if I happen to have been in there and seen that, I probably would have approached it a little differently, because unfortunately I've come to a point in my life where I'm starting to question the honesty of people of where they're going, because life is becoming a little bit more scary. And I don't know if they're out here, trying to produce something to sell to any groups. I mean, we are a municipality, so there's auditors. I don't really understand this concept, but I'm starting to, and Mr. Toffon has helped me get a better understanding. But it's scary. But I feel that that being pretty much the main entrance, that everybody should go through it that is not an employee. That's just my opinion, and I don't know if I'm able to voice that, but being a vice chair there, I should probably be careful, but we need to, I think we need to address and sooner than later.
Okay.
But
Maybe we could sit down with Terry too, and if there's anything more that you need for.
Well, I'd like to get the new clerk involved.
Yeah.
I mean, are customers of DMV going through that spot? Are we moving that? There's a lot of variables that go with this.
Yeah, and I think
It's not just as easy as plugging it in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the task was, and it's probably a good thing to wait for the clerk, because I think with our existing clerk, there was you guys were kind of tasked with like checking in appointments and things like that, which maybe it shouldn't be, but that's what it turned into. And that may have to change out there as well.
well, I kind of look at it as, we've been waiting, 2 years for this thing, and now we have it, and we're ready to rock and roll, and these are the things that are coming up. And this sometimes is what I feel frustrated, and I'm not picking on any which one, but I mean, here we are at the last minute, and now, we're waiting again. It's just like these darn reports that we're always waiting for, or these studies. To me, it's very frustrating, but I understand the government. I just had to get that off my chest so I could have a great Thanksgiving. So thank you all. All right,
So speaking of reports that you love to have, DPW was tasked with looking at the feasibility of building and operating a regional morgue within our county. We also approached many other counties, gave them questionnaires as to what their needs are. There is certainly a need out there. The first part of this, we're going to get a presentation from Clark Patterson today and Crime Lab Designs on what they have done for the plans, and they'll go through that. The second part of this would be the operating. And I know Dr. Sikorica is on Terry's phone. I just heard yesterday in a meeting that we had with Clark Patterson that currently there's probably about 50 forensic pathologists that are coming out a year. That's not very many to cover the entire country. So if and when we do decide to build this, it's how do we attract staff to come here and operate that facility? That will be another question that I believe Clark Patterson and those are gonna work on based on what we need for staff for the facility. But that's kind of the bottom line. I'm going to turn it over to Nate and John now, and actually Crime Lab Design is also on a Zoom with us today, and they're going to kind of give a presentation of where they're at right now. So Nate, John, you guys can step up to the podium if you like.
All right, can you share the presentation?
if it would be easier for you, also we have speakers at the table if you want to.
Well, I think what we wanted to do today was to walk you through where we are on the study. As Kevin said, we've gathered data, we've crunched the data, we've put together a program and some diagrams of what the important adjacencies are in the building, and then taken that and begun to apply it to either the new site or the jail site. And there are pros and cons of both, but I'll turn it over to Crime Labs to kind of introduce the prime takeaways from the initial parts of the study. So.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Lauren Defendis and I'm with Crime Lab Design. To give you a quick rundown, we received responses from 6 counties. That's Clinton, Essex, Fulton, Saratoga, Warren, and Washington. And from these, we determined several key takeaways regarding the new facility. First and foremost, the counties are looking for a state-of-the-art facility with a secure but easily accessible site. The facility is expected to be open during regular business hours, with staff on call for the weekends and 24/7 access to receipt and release. The facility should also be able to accommodate a minimum of 2 board-certified forensic pathologists, with a minimum of 2 autopsy stations and 1 to 2 specialty stations. There is interest in providing additional lab work services. The facility should also be able to receive law enforcement, visiting coroners, and visiting families by appointment. Caseloads are expected to increase by about 6 to 8% per year, so the facility needs to be designed to accommodate said growth. And with that in mind, we have developed a 30-year planning horizon for this facility. We've estimated that this facility will need to be able to accommodate around 650 to 750 cases per year in 2053. And to do that, the facility will need to be designed for 3 stations in the main autopsy suite, with 1 to be added in the future, and 1 station in the decomposition suite, with 1 to be added in the future as well. For decedent storage, the facility will need to be able to accommodate an estimated 40 short-term decedents and 3 long-term decedents. And this can be accomplished with 2 coolers sized at 726 net square feet each, and 1 freezer sized at 182 net square feet. Decedents can be stored on individual gurneys, which provides greater flexibility and ease of use for staff in comparison to a higher capacity rack and stack storage system. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jin He for a quick rundown of the program.
Good morning. My name is Jin Hee Lee. I'm with Crime Lab Design. Thanks for the opportunity for us to present. So based on this program, we use the standard from the name. And based on this, we looked into the front activity to the administrative activities as well as the autopsy suite. And quickly we'll run through, and if you could showcase your adjacencies, please, Lauren. How this has been organized is from let's start with the right side, actually my right. I don't know if it is your right or left. From my right side, on the right side, this is where we call it public interface. This is where the family will be coming in, and they'll be able to pick up any decedent's items or the law enforcement will be coming in to pick up any kind of evidence that's been dropped off. In addition to this, after when we are crossing the red dot will be what we call it the conference rooms for any decedent's family needs to visit, or even the media. If there's a high profile cases, then they'll be coming in and have discussions with the medical examiners. Once we pass that, this is where we call it all the administrative work, as well as the medical examiner's offices will reside in there. Once we pass that area, this is the private zone. Only the personnel who are involved in the autopsy, like medical examiner's team, will be able to access this. No personnel with the access cannot access the autopsy suite. Finally is the sally port. This is where the decedents will be dropping off and picked up. The funeral home will be coming in and out of this facility. Therefore, we want to minimize any type of viewing. So we're putting this into the back of the activity. So we call this a back of the house. Along with that, there will be significant amount of the hazardous waste will be discharged. So the maintenance will be coming through, not through the sally port, but through the back of the house activity area. So we'll screen it in such a way so that public won't be able to view the back of the house activities. Next, please. So how this is flowing is through the map that we have illustrated here. The administrative as well as the medical examiner's team will be their parking will be segregated from the rest of the front parking, public interface. That will be one thing to note. And then of course the funeral home dropping off the decedents or picking up the decedents will have a separate entry. The floor plan illustrates the bubble diagram that I just talked about, but more in an elaborate sense. Just to let you know, per Lauren's discussion, we looked at your catchment area as well as the population growth for the next 30 years. We wanted to plan right size for today with the future growth in mind. Having said that, per forensic pathologist can oversee 250,000 people. Based on that calculation, with the 6 to 8% population growth for the next per year, we came up with the solution that you will need at least a minimum of 2 autopsy stations. Lauren, would you mind? Right. So that is the what we call an autopsy table. Per year, forensic pathologist, medical examiner can examine 250 bodies per year. That will give the medical examiner some time off or even a continuing education or sick days, whatever that personnel will need. So for now, we are designing it to accommodate 3 medical examiners, so with the 1 in the future. To the right will be decom. This is where the cases like when the decedent comes into the facility, you know for sure there's some kind of a contamination is happening and the body has been decomposed. Then we immediately put them into what we call a decomp autopsy. This is not a biosafety level 3. This is simply segregating the body from the other bodies so that there's no contamination is happening. So for that, we are putting in 1 autopsy station for now, and then the second one for the future. In terms of a cooler sizes is what Lauren discussed. We are accommodating it is very unfortunate that we are thinking this in our head, that mass casualty is also has been factored into the coolers as well. And we are providing, currently we're providing 20 gurneys, each cooler in and cooler out. As the decisions are dropped off at the Sally Port, they will immediately go into the cooler in, and the bodies are usually processed within 24 hours. And after 24 hours, it goes right into the cooler out for the funeral home to pick up the bodies. The freezer location, we're currently accommodating 3 bodies in there. Those are for the John Does and Jane Does, unidentified bodies. Based on the survey that we have received, you're currently looking at about no more than 30 days for the bodies to be retrieved by the families or identified. In terms of all of the floor plan here, as I have said in a bubble diagram, all the autopsy suite has been allocated into 1 concentrated area. We are accommodating latent print and histology. Histology is looking at microscopic about organs and tissues to really determine what happened to the body and how the decedent has passed away. As well as the latent print is more of identifying and photographing the bodies of the decedents. And I think that summarizes the floor plan for what it is. Can we go to the next one, please? Here's some view of the autopsy stations. And then the 3D view of what this facility would look like, at least for autopsy suites. And then the cooler. Nathan?
All right, so the 2 options that we've been tasked to review are to look at the jail for reuse and the site across the road, and which is appropriately named Gurney Lane. But that was unique. But looking at the jail, if you recall the bubble diagrams, the blue areas all need to be in what I'll call a high bay space, because they have extensive mechanicals above them. We need fairly tall ceilings for lighting and services above the autopsy tables, and the ability to do rack and stack in the coolers. We're going to need height that exceeds what we can get in the jail. So the jail is actually only appropriate for the administrative or green portions of those bubbles. And so we're showing here to add a significant addition to the jail that would kind of nestle in between the administration or the maintenance building out behind it. It eats up parking, it constricts the truck movements in the back. And obviously, there's utilities under that footprint that would have to be reoriented or reconfigured to allow for this addition. This addition and the jail are bigger than the program, but because the jail is such a low floor to ceiling height, that the only way to use it is to do a perimeter corridor. So kind of single loaded quarters rather than a double loaded corridor down the middle. The middle would now be all the mechanicals feeding the offices. So anyways, on to the next slide. Should be, and this is the Gurney Lane site. The building fits essentially where the old nursing home was. We kind of reduced the parking to accommodate what we need, which is a dozen or so spaces for the public, 30 or so spaces for staff, and then the big area to the upper right is the truck movements and some storage of tractor trailers if there ever happened to be a mass casualty. That would allow you to have some extra space. The principal issue with this site is right now it's not served by a sewer. There is a sewer nearby, which is private. And we either need to duplicate what they did, which is to drill under the 87, the Northway, and connect it to the town system on Route 9. Or tie into the system that's there. But other than that, I think this site offers the privacy and security that I think we're looking for, and gives the opportunity to have a really nice environment for the staff that would work here, but keeping it out of the public eye, if you will. The other thing I would say about the reusing the jail is the morgue does not really add any synergy to the campus here. Not a public interface in any significant way. So. Anything else you need to cover?
Next slide.
Next
We want
slide.
to do, this is just kind of
Okay.
a little blow up of that. That was already discussed. Next slide. This is just kind of a quick take off on the footprint, how it could look, kind of setting into the existing site.
And that also illustrates the blue areas are all in what I'll call the high bay space, the taller block. And then the offices and such are in slope roof structures around the edge, which don't need the amount of height. And a fairly straightforward building, but windows, ample windows to the beautiful surroundings up on the hill. So. And we have looked at cost. I won't go into great depth here, but the cost of construction is in the teens, $16-17 million. Total project, with all the fees and various things, is probably going to come up into the 20s, with the big variable being when. If you do this in 25, it's obviously less expensive than if you try to do it in 26 or 27, depending on what the urgency is within the county. The counties were generally very enthusiastic. This is a problem that they face every day, working with different hospitals, whether it be up in Plattsburgh or up in the Adirondacks, or it's just difficult to get time and the right quality of space to do the work that needs to be done. Yeah.
Well, I've waited a long time for this, and I want to reach out and thank you. This is really very exciting for me because this is something that I started with our undersheriff before he became undersheriff. Of something that I saw a need that we needed, and it's, you know, taken almost 4 years to get to this point, it seems like, and this is very exciting. Some of the questions I have is, you know, you said, you know, estimated costs, and I'm not putting the finger down because I'm being in the construction business. I actually know, you know, some of the costs, and I know it's not cheap, but that figure that you threw out, is that for the jail or the lot, or kind of, doesn't matter, it's pretty much an even shot?
They're fairly equivalent because the jail complex would be larger in total than the new building. And has issues with its site. The new building. So I think they're comparable. And we're running the numbers on that. The other issue with the jail is that it changes the flow. Obviously, you can't have the offices feeding directly into the locker rooms, feeding directly into the autopsy space. It's going to be a little more circuitous than that.
I get caught up in those big words myself. So that's awesome. All right. So my question is, in the jail, all right, we have 2 floors, you know, and I know you're looking for height, but if we, you know, if we spread out, I'm just going, because, you know, my mind's thought about this so long. I know we can't get the height over there, and there are some certain height, you know, restrictions. You know, there was a corridor down there for all the mechanicals at one time, and it was all taken out. So that is one, is something that we looked at it, you know, utilizing the whole building and maybe sprawling it out instead of, you know, trying to add on. You know, my whole idea is to try to work into what we have existing, because it's been sitting over there for so long, as something that we can use. Now, there is the possibility of, you know, being able to do other things, but obviously that would be another, you know, 4 or 5 year study to get to that point, which is very frustrating, and I won't be around anymore, but that's okay. The other question I have is the other counties that you have reached out to, all right, were they interested? I know, because this is something that originated with my thoughts, is that if we really need it, other counties need it, you know? So are they willing to apply in, hang on a sec, Kev, apply in, you know, or contribute to, or is it, were they looking more for, you know, leasing space? I mean, these are all the things, it's a big ticket item for the county, but obviously, our superintendent would like to chime in here, so.
I would, because the task for Clark Patterson and Crime Lab Designs was not to ask counties if they were going to participate. That's here for us. We needed to take a plan for those counties first. So that was their task, is to come up with a plan, and the data that they collected from these other counties was what are their needs? What do they have going on with their autopsies right now? That if not that they were going to participate, just what are the needs that they have right now? That's all we know. Now we can take this plan eventually when it's completed and bring it to these other counties and see if they will jump on board.
So we're in the process of putting together the costs for each option. We're also in the process of putting together the operational costs.
Right.
To understand all what needs to go into this facility in terms of yearly expense, in terms of the staff and supplies and utilities, et cetera, to run the facility. So we're doing that, and then you'll be able to get a business case in front of your group and in front of the other counties as to what's the most appropriate way to fund this. I think Dr. Sikorica felt that it would primarily come from the cost per case. And like I said, other counties that we spoke to, they feel the pinch. And Dr. Circa shared with me when they had the mass casualty down in Shire County, that Albany Med, which does all that work in that district, didn't want it. They were horrified by the crunch that created within their campus. And so I think this is an emerging issue. And the other counties are starting to grapple with it. Orange County just built theirs. I believe Dutchess is doing something now. So people are starting to move on this issue.
It's very interesting to hear. Supervisor Straw.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing to put into the mix is that the lot on Gurney Lane, on the west side of the Northway, has a significant potential value, around $3 million. That revenue could be used to, do the work over here. The other thing too is there's a recreation area there.
Yes.
And that area is used by the recreation people. So you mentioned trying to keep the facilities, out of the public view. It would not be out of the public view there. It would be very much in the public view. But again, the thing that concerns me, well, we have to put it in the mix. I mean, it doesn't concern me, is that if you build a facility over there, and there clearly seems to be a need to have a facility like this, whether it's Warren County that takes the initiative or New York State, there's an opportunity cost that you have to consider if you're going to locate opposite this side, because that's a very, very valuable piece of property. And it could be a good source of revenue for the county to be able to put money into this facility. And hopefully New York State gets involved too. But I just wanted to bring that to the mix. That should go into the discussion.
Or where the trailhead up there, I think that's what you're referring to.
Well, and the value of the property to a private developer who's expressed interest in it.
If I might ask, Supervisor Connor, how many acres is over there that we own?
I don't recall. I want to say it's about 10, a little bit more than that. Yeah.
Because I mean, I look at the housing shortage, that's a possibility where, something that we have to keep in the mix, but 10 acres. Sorry. Yeah. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, when this first came up, I tried to emphasize the fact that, concurrent with this, there had to be the development of the business plan, the financial plan that involves these counties. And what's the methodology? And I'm not sure it applies to these consultants. What's the methodology that's going to be applied to assess the cost of the building? And then the operation of the building. And what's going to be the reasonable cost to each of the counties, because they're all going to need to know, we're going to need to know. And they're going to have to be contractual commitments relative to all of this. And so it just seems to me that before we expend a lot more time and money pushing this down the road, we need to let the financial side of this catch up, if you will. We have a concept, we have an idea we can share, we have an idea of what it's going to cost. Now the question is, how do we pay for it? And when these other places hear what their fair share might be based upon some methodology, they might not agree with that. And they might not agree with the methodology. They might not agree with whatever. And so there's a whole process here that needs to be undertaken by someone or some entity. And, I would have preferred that it be concurrent with this, but I think it needs to take place here soon.
Supervisor Conover, you've stated that before, and I agree with you. This is something I was hoping maybe at the same time, we could do, but now that we have a concept and we have options, you're absolutely correct in my opinion, that this needs to take place soon. So,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just for example, the whether you utilize the facility once or 100 times, there's the cost of the facility.
Mhm.
And so some level of thinking, it's similar to some of our operations at the municipal level, right? We have certain infrastructure we have to maintain. Whether it's utilized this much by some residents or this much we have, and so we've all developed our various methodologies for how we're going to deal with that. Same thing has to happen here. Then there's the operating side of things, right? Then there's the operational side of things, which includes all the things associated: electricity, light, staffing, security, maintenance, snow plowing, you name it. And so that financial plan needs to be sketched out. It doesn't have to be finalized, but needs to be sketched out. And the other possible participants need to see that. This is going to be a very costly thing. They're going to have, at some point, we're going to ask them to press hard sign here, right? And then, and questions up into and including, how are we going to finance this? Do we do a county bond, or do we ask the state of New York to help us with the financing of this facility, which maybe they would through one of their corporations. So there's all of that needs to move forward now, and I think quickly, so that we have the ability to meet a reasonable timeline, which I know is your concern, Mr. Chairman. But without that, I don't think this moves much further.
Could I chime in? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Doctor.
Oh, yes, I think the business issues here are very, very important. It's a very complicated picture, how these counties all interact and how we could attract them to this site. That's something that's got to be looked at financially as well, and the operating costs. I've thought quite a bit about it. I think we should have a meeting just to discuss how things operate and how we could pay for it once it's operational. That would be very important to work out beforehand, and I'm very willing to commit to that meeting if you'd like to have it. I know pretty much how things operate. I've been here 20-some years, and I know the corner systems and the ins and outs of them, and but we have to really get that down first. And we've already done the physical plant, the planning for that, and that sounds more than adequate. But we have to think about attracting a forensic pathologist. We have to think about the cost of that, the cost of staffing, the cost of things like biohazard removal. There's a lot of things to look at, and I'd be more than happy to jump in on there and help you come up with some estimates to see if it's feasible.
Right, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Doug.
One more thing. I don't know if there's a model, a multi-county model elsewhere in the country, anywhere in the country. That would be most helpful. I mean, if you're doing this on a countywide basis, it's just your county, that kind of simplifies things a little bit. The capital costs, the operating costs are borne by the county, right? But in a multi-county, which I think is a very desirable thing to do with the kind of a regional facility. If we don't have to reinvent the wheel here, so there may be experts, very informed people that can assist us in this regard, and it'll be the shortest path forward also, I do believe.
Yes, that could very well be possible. I know in New York State, we have counties that do subcontract with other counties to do their operations, but these counties by themselves have enough population to support themselves. Things like Buffalo, Rochester, they have their own medical examiner systems, but they primarily do the work for their counties and then subcontract with other counties. Here, we're trying to unify all these counties to realize if we have enough support to make it operational by itself, because Warren County cannot support this by itself at all. You need a certain number of sad to say, patience to come through your door to support this operation, if we decide to do it. We can't exist on 200 bodies. That would be not feasible. It wouldn't be feasible to support the financing of this facility or the operation. So again, I have to leave now to do 3 autopsies for, let's see, 2 for Clinton County and 1 for Franklin County. So I'm going to be signing off if you don't mind, but please contact me when you'd like to get together and talk about the business part of this operation. Thank you
Thank you,
very
I
much.
want to thank you, Dr. Sikorica, for spending your time. Thank you.
Sure. You're
Uh,
welcome.
So
Superintendent Hager.
I'm going to agree with Supervisor Conover. I'm also going to agree with the chairman. Time is of the essence to get this done. With that being said, we were tasked with coming up with an operating plan, development, design, the infrastructure plan to move forward. And we needed that before we discuss with these other counties what we're going to do. These guys are finishing up that operation plan soon. Nate, I'm not sure if you guys have a schedule. Or John, if
I think we'll be wrapped up within the month.
so they'll be wrapped up with basically this entire thing in a month. I certainly have the presentation that they had today, and I'm certainly more than willing to hand it out to the committee to kind of pose questions, mark it up, ask questions on any information that they have on there. But then they'll also be providing us that operating plan. What we need for staff, what we need for, not just the pathologist, forensic pathologist, but any other staff that's needed for that facility. That's the full package of information that we can then, Ron, maybe you're right, maybe seek out an expert, maybe Dr. Sikorica to determine, okay, here's the whole concept. Now, how does that model work with all these counties? But we weren't going to take anything to any other counties. We were just going to collect data from them until we had a complete package to say, okay, this is what we have now. This is the operating plan. This is the infrastructure that's needed. What are you willing to do? But we wanted to get to that point yet. So as soon as they finish up, I think we're there and we can move to that next level.
My recommendation would be at this stage that I think you should meet with the appropriate state department of jurisdiction, show them where you are. And I think you should solicit their assistance in they're supposedly experts, right? This is to help us pull this together to be able to do this. They may have people right off the top of their head that, oh yeah, you should be talking to this person or that person. And absolutely, I think the state financing is the way to go. And this is the avenue. I know you could really maybe shortcut here a little bit, but I think having them at the table and support this regional concept in the state of New York, I think is very important.
Is that a resolution?
Crime Lab Design, I don't know if they're still on the line, but they are doing many multi-county regional type facilities. And I'm sure each one is different, but we could give you those examples. They're down in Texas or out west or, up in Montana. So.
I'm sure they're across the United States and maybe even, this is not something that just doesn't happen here in the county. It's a worldwide probably problem. And I'm, today it's really very exciting to hear and how now I'm actually excited to turn up the heat and get that report in and get moving. But I really appreciate where we have come. I was hoping maybe to have had a copy of myself to follow. It's a little hard for me to follow up on the screen, especially here in the angle, but one more month, I'd be excited to see the paperwork and some more of the numbers. So
Well, again, within that month, now that they've done a presentation, I will certainly hand out the presentation to all the committees so that they can review, look at it, mark it up. I will give a time limit to give it back so that they can finish within this month's time period.
does that sound good to the committee? All right, I know we're pushing on time and it wasn't on our schedule. I probably would have penciled in some more time for our meeting, but I really do appreciate, you all coming up and, like I said, this is very exciting. Yes, Supervisor Conover.
Are we finished with this part of the agenda, Mr. Chairman?
Are we all comfortable with where we're at right now?
John, Nate, thank you. Jim Lee, Lauren, thank you as well from Crime Lab Designs.
Thank you, really, all of you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
And
Guys.
my point, I just, if I could, if you indulge me a little bit, going back to the museum. Now, here's another example of, okay, well, we've got a design, we know approximately what it's going to cost. We're, in any event, we're talking about, basically, I think paying for this in cash in some fashion. And I haven't heard much about a borrowing or whatever. So you've approached the occupancy, folks. You know, but this is where people need to put their heads together because, for example, perhaps we could handle the construction financing through the general fund and repay the general fund over the next couple of years out of OCTAX, just to mitigate the impact on OCTAX so that we're not skewering anyone else's situation. Or, for example, we could, for example, do a short-term bond anticipation note, which we could retire over a couple of years, 3 years, up to 5 actually. But so my point is that it's time to put the business plan together for the museum, which I think will help everyone become a lot more comfortable with moving forward with the project. And you could explain the different options that were looked at. And so I think this is a matter of sitting down with the budget officer, absolutely, the treasurer, et cetera, and they can put this together, and then we know we have our path forward, and we're not reluctant to want to hit the go button, because if you're going to meet your schedule, you're going to need to be moving forward here sooner than later. So and I don't think that would be all that difficult to look at the different options and pick which one is the more desirable way to proceed. And so that's my 2 cents.
Well, I'm going to say that's more than 2 cents because you made some really great sense. So thank you, Supervisor Conover. So as we stand, is everybody comfortable with today's meeting?
Very good.
So can I go to privilege of the floor and public comment? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Supervisor Grassi, Supervisor Stroud, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?